to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Mythic Legions Valiant Knight. This figure debuted at LegionsCon 2023. They had it surprise drop at the show, so fans who were there got a chance to get it. But this is not an exclusive. This will be available online at a future date. I think they said sometime in the late winter, early spring, they're going to release the rest of the reinforcements, the con exclusives, and this Valiant Knight. So if you missed out on that con, debut, don't worry too much. This is a standard release figure, so the con price was $40, and presumably the price that it'll be online eventually will be $37, maybe $40. I'm not entirely sure, because they do shift their prices around a little bit once in a while. So this is a standard figure. It's got a detailed paint application. It is phenomenal in the articulation department. As far as Mythic Legions go, this might well be the best Mythic Legions figure to date in terms of movement. I mean, we did get that Mask of the Red Death recently that also has crazy articulation, even more articulation, at least in the elbows, than this does. But the waist is majorly approved. Every piece on this figure is pretty much brand new, aside from the loincloth, the neck guard, and the helmet, and the weapons and stuff. But like all the arms, limbs, torso, the necks, and the hands and all that stuff are all brand new. So this really is a special treat when you get a brand new figure, no waiting whatsoever, in hand, ready to go. And this very much is a sneak peek at the Necronominus wave and the knights that they developed for that wave. So this is that body. I think it's the Sir Elijah body, pretty much top to bottom. Shoulder pauldrons might be from Sir Enoch, but like most of this stuff is Elijah. They made a lot of different sculpts on this new body, so you're going to see some variety even when those come out. And yeah, so this figure rocks. I am super excited. Let's get into this review. Straight out of the box, you might think it's just the Iron Knight, I think it was. One of those like Advent of Decay Knights, or the Silver Knight, something like that. But, because I actually walked by this before they had opened up the line, and I was kind of just doing a little sneak peek video. It was sitting right there, and I didn't realize it. I just thought it was the Advent of Decay Knight. So when you just kind of glance at it quickly, you're like, oh, it's a Silver Knight. Cool. It's a knight with silver armor. But then as you get in close, you start to really notice that this is much different. It is a 1.0 knight, right? It's kind of slim, but it's a slimmer 1.0 figure. It does have the two heads that came with the Father Christmas figure, those two kind of surprise heads, those knight heads that were added. So you've got that here, and you've got some nice little details. Not every single thing is painted, but some nice little gold details on this helmet here. And then you've got in the arms, you've got some nice gold trim on some of that like sculpture, and here on the forearms. And then you've got like this type of thing is painted. It kind of reminds me of the Red Shield Soldier in that way, where it's a builder, but it's got kind of like a nice sort of premium feel to it. It's even got some weathering. You can see like it's a little dirtier. It's a little used armor. Like this is not your shiny, pristine rich man's armor. This is a trooper who has been, wearing this armor and guarding the realm. Story-wise, you've got a cool little like nod to all of the Legions of Light, and the fact that all the Legions of Light have knights in their ranks. Nice little buckle details down on the legs. And yeah, so this is a really cool looking silhouette, a cool looking knight here. It's got that new torso. You're going to see a little bit of gap depending on how you pose it, because this torso is designed to be compatible with their new cloth goods system, where they're going to have cloth over the top there and then skirts that come down. So it's a little slimmer to allow for that cloth to get in there and then still have nice articulation. Brand new shoulder pauldrons. I think the Sir Enoch has these shoulder pauldrons. Not sure if something else does, but pretty cool look there. A little slimmer. Just like kind of a little different version of the knight's shoulder pauldrons. The neck piece is also one of the few reused parts that was on the Red Shield Soldier, and the loincloth piece was on a couple figures, including Vorthog. And then I took the shoulder armor off so that you can get a kind of an overall look at that new arm, which we'll get into articulation later. But top to bottom, brand new arm, brand new hands. Comes with a ton of hands. And then a look at the torso all the way around. So it's still got the same ports in the back, but you've got that torso there that they used plenty of times in that Necronominus wave, and we'll getting a little sneak peek here. Even the belt, I think, is new. Like, I think the other belts all have some kind of strap hanging down, like over here. So that's brand new as well. First time we're seeing that in hand, at least. Then you got that skirt piece that's got a fairly slimmed down kind of look to it, again, to go along with the slimmer knight look there. And if you look closely, you can see the upper thigh piece. The piece above the thigh cut is new, because typically on a knight, you have that chainmail up above this line right here is typically chainmail on the knight. So I think that piece is new. And I'm not super knowledgeable about the different types of knight armor. So let me know in the comments below if you know if this type of armor has a specific name. And the lower legs are new, matching that same design, just inverted from the top of the legs there. Got some buckle details. And then the feet are new as well. So yeah, top to bottom, probably 85 to 90% brand new figure. Zooming out, here's an overall look at the silhouette of the figure, which stands just under 7 inches tall. And for comparisons, first up, we do have some knights, of course. On the left is the Red Shield Soldier. And as you can see, the Red Shield Soldier's armor is very close color-wise, but it's a little less metallic. It's got a little flatter kind of paint scheme on there, but very, very close. You could absolutely mix and match and switch parts between those two figures, which I'll try to do some stuff when we get into the pop and swaps. And on the right, we have the Xylernian Guard. Also very close in armor color. This one's got the same shiny metallic to it. It just has a slightly lighter shade of silver. I don't have any 2.0 knights handy, but here's a couple 2.0 figures with knight parts. On the left is Ravana with a shadow elf, kind of a kit bash thing going on there. And on the right is the elf builder, the female elf deluxe builder from the tactics wave there. It's got a bunch of extra parts on there, but basically a couple knight style figures from the 2.0 build. Next up, for some figura obscura, on the left is the Mask of the Red Death. On the right is Father Christmas. Next up, a couple other lines. On the left is the Fury Toys Blademaster Wang. On the right is the Roman Signifer from the Combatants Fight for Glory. And finally, here's the Valiant Knight next to a couple D13 demons. For accessories, this thing is loaded with hands. The first set is a pair of horizontally hinged regular gripping hands. Next up, we got a pair of vertically hinged regular gripping hands. Then we got a pair of horizontally hinged closed fists. We've got a pair of open gesturing hands that have horizontal hinges. And then we've got a pair of sort of half-closed clawing hands that have horizontal hinges. And again, it's so nice to finally be getting hands for our knights in all these different expressions with different hinge types. One fine accessory we'll be playing with a little later is a 2.0 of the neck peg, and you'll see the neck has a hinge, and we'll do that with the articulation. It does come with a knight's shield that has a gold rim around it. It's got a red and white theme, and then you have a little fleur-de-lis pattern throughout. And something, I can't remember if we've ever seen this before, but the handle's actually painted, which is a nice little touch there. Some really nice detail on the sword. The grip has 2 colors, and then you have a gold accent there, and you have a silver blade, and it'll have a gold accent on the scabbard. This is the one with the little clip there. And then you got paint throughout and a gold accent on the tip. Then you've got the flail with the spiked ball that has a nice shiny metallic to it. You've got a weathered gold kind of color going on with the metal chain. And then you've got a 2-tone handle here as well. So nice pieces. Those have been on other figures many times in the past. And then the final accessory, it does come with this alternate head that you saw on the turntable shot in the beginning of the video. And that's got some nice gold trim on there. This is the other head that also came with the Father Christmas set. At this part of the video, I want to just note that some people have complained to me about the fact that I keep doing the articulation and kind of wasting their time with the same articulation on the 1.0 body. So I'm just going to skip that in this video. Just kidding. This thing has the best articulation. It feels brand new. It's just so many improvements in range. Nothing crazy drastic. It's all the same points of articulation, although there is one added point of articulation, but they're incremental improvements that add up to just a completely different experience with this figure. So we got to go heavily detailed on the articulation for this one. Like I said before, you do have a hinge at the neck, so that changes things. Previously, the swivel at the neck didn't really matter. It didn't really do anything because the head could swivel on the ball. But now you actually are going to want to make sure that you know where that hinge is, because it'll determine where you move the head. But that makes for an even more range of articulation on that head. Like, this thing can do a ton. So just using the ball joint, it can do the usual sort of rolling around on that ball joint. But then when you add in the neck peg, it can kind of go back and forth crazy, and you can have him looking down really well like this, and then you can have him looking up really well, depending on how you do it. You can even kind of go off to the side if you need to, like for certain poses. So once you swivel that over to the side there like this, you can kind of pop it back on there and have him looking to the side and at different angles. So it just makes a lot of difference there in terms of that neck articulation. It's a massive improvement. It's really good. I love it. As per usual, the shoulder armor is on that peg hole in the back there, so that can swing up, and then you can bring the arm up to about here. I'm going to remove it just so we can really see the full range of that shoulder articulation. And so with that off, the shoulder can come up, and then you have this plastic piece over the top here that kind of reminds me of the skeleton arm there, and then that can come up to this far. Let me get the other armor off, and then I'll show you both arms up. And so there's how far up the arms can go. So you can see they can go up past the typical like T pose, the typical, I guess, 180 degrees, and get just like a little past that if you're just hinging them up. And of course, they can swivel all the way around. The ball shape in the shoulder is a bit more pronounced, and the torso is a bit more narrow and cut in over here. So what that does is it allows the arm to come across the front a little better. And so you can get those arms crossing over a little bit more than typical, actually a lot more than typical on a 1.0 figure. And it probably doesn't seem like a crazy amount initially, but combined with the other points of articulation, this improved elbow joint where it can come up past 90 degrees instead of just a little below 90 degrees actually makes a pretty big difference. You still have the swivel at the forearm and the swivel at the wrist, and then the hinges at the wrist, and depending on which wrist you have on the figure, they have some horizontal or vertical hinges for those gripping hands. And then in the torso, because of that little more gap and space in there, it hunches forward a lot more, and then it can hunch back a lot more as well. And you can go side to side like crazy with that. Got to watch the gaps in your posing, but you can pull the skirt up as you're posing it and just kind of fill those gaps. But it's just a wide range of motion in that ball jointed waist. So huge improvement there. And then down into the hips, I think they're relatively the same, but with a little like slimmer armor, like the skirt piece and stuff, I feel like you get better range. So that can kick up here. And then you combine that with the torso and you get a pretty crazy kick like that. I mean, that's pretty wild for a Mythic Legions figure. And then it can kick back a lot, can go out into the splits. You've got a twist at the top of the thigh as usual. The range of the knee, it's not like vastly improved, but it is better. And it's enough that it makes possible those crouching poses like I did in the beginning of the video. That pose is just not possible with your standard 1.0, like the earlier 1.0 buck. There's also a twist below the knee. And I think I forgot to mention there's the same twist above the elbow up top there. So that piece is still intact. And then you have a hinge at the foot that can come up that far, down that far. It can twist all the way around. And then you have that same ankle rocker, which has always been a really good point of articulation, nice range as usual with these figures. And then the last thing I wanted to do with the articulation was to grab a two-handed sword so that you kind of see just how well this thing will hold a sword with two hands. I mean, that is effortless getting it into this position, and you can even with it in hand sort of move it around and like pose it around with it. And I mean, it's just it really is effortless now to do two-handed poses with swords. And a lot of those new figures are coming with these great, more like realistically sized kind of weapons and stuff. So gonna have a lot of fun posing these new arms with those new weapons. Okay, for part swaps and a little posing action here, First one is the Hadriana head sculpt there. If you don't like the kind of larger size of the heads that come with it, which I do think are a bit large, like I originally thought those might have been teasers for a brute scale knight. So they do scale a little bit big on the body. But they've worked for me okay too. Like some people have larger heads. A helmet goes on top of a head. A helmet should be somewhat big, right? But for those who don't like it, here's an awesome option. It comes with the 2.0 neck peg. So you can swap onto this slimmer body some of those 2.0 heads that come with other figures. And who knows, maybe they'll do a heads pack at some point that might have some other 2.0 knight heads packs or heads that match with it. So yeah, and you know, this is a pretty cool pose, nice action pose there, kind of showing off some of that articulation. And for this one, I primarily took parts from the Red Shield Soldier. So the helmet, the shoulder armor, the skirt piece, those are all Red Shield. So you can see that even though they're a little different, like flatter, not as metallic, they still work pretty well on this figure. And I like them because they are kind of slimmer. So they work on this slimmer body too, because the Red Shield Soldier had that slimmer torso. And so that is a bit of a slimmer knight as well. And then I also took Artemis Silvercord's cloth goods and I put those on as a skirt, almost giving this guy like a slight, almost like elvish kind of a vibe to it. So you've got that, and then you've got the weapon from the Elf Deluxe Builder. And kind of a cool look here, I think. So, you know, and posed up a little bit, again, to show that two-handed sword wielding pose. Okay, and my last one is the Mask of the Red Death undergown on the Valiant Knight. And it actually worked out pretty well. Now, it's probably a little too long for a knight, but the overall like application is easy. And if you wanted to cut it, it would be a very simple process. But all I did was I took the arms off the Mask of the Red Death, slid this up, took the arm. I actually fully disassembled the Valiant Knight, and then I slid just the torso up in there. And then I kind of like bunched the torso up, slid it down through the hole in the skirt piece, and then I put the hips in there underneath, and it popped through just fine. So that worked out pretty well, you know, and I think it looks pretty darn good. I was able to slide the shoulder pauldrons in behind. I mean, aside from snipping the hood off of where it's stitched to the gown, I haven't modified a thing. Of course, you could cut it and like shorten it to make it a little more appropriate for a knight. But overall, I mean, I think this is pretty sweet look right there. So yeah, this figure is awesome. It's always fun to get a brand new figure in hand without any notice, just a surprise kind of figure. Like the same thing happened earlier with the Mask of the Red Death. Just kind of like, boom, here you go, guys. Here's a brand new figure. And the fact that they kind of gave us a sneak peek at LegionsCon, but this won't be exclusive, like it'll be readily available in a few months, is just fantastic. Overall, incredible release. Thanks for watching my video, and until next time, may the Force be with you.